Yes. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Surprise. This is a surprise video drop from MLAC. And because it is World Mental Health Day, we wanted to contribute something to this significant day where our aim is to let more people be aware of the importance of mental health. And with us today, this morning, is my mom. So Dr. Honey Carandang, National Social Scientist, clinical psychologist, author of many psychological books on Filipino families, and president and founder of MLAC. So we will have a brief conversation with her just to ask her a little bit about mental health. And the first question that I wanted to ask, and maybe
Mhm.
this is what's in the mind of some viewers at the moment, is but based on your professional and personal opinion and observations, what do you
Mhm.
think is the state of mental health now here in the Philippines? Yung mga kababayan natin, ano ang sa tingin mo
Mhm.
mental health natin ngayon?
That's a very important and pointed question. Before I go to that, let me put it first in some kind of a context. Kasi importante yung question mo ngayon eh. First, I think what I'd like to say is that it's important to realize a good thing that's happening, because many not good things are happening around us, and we know that. That's what we will talk about later, how to deal with that. But one good thing is that we are now talking openly about mental health, and there are more conversations and more posts, and more people are aware, but not just aware, they're actually actively talking about it, asking questions. So that's only been maybe about 2 years ago. That has been very recent, because before this I couldn't even talk about mental health using the title mental health. People would invite me, but they didn't want me to use the title mental health because it has a stigma. I think the stigma is lessening. That's one good thing. People are becoming more comfortable, more needing, more aware that they need to talk about mental health issues now. Yeah. And
Mhm.
probably that's because, to answer your question, that's because of the situation of mental health, or mental not so healthy of mental health in the Philippines and around the world, I think. But maybe let's talk about the Philippines. Although we know that around the world there's so much upheaval, no? So much conflict, crisis going on in the US, in Europe, and also in the Philippines. So we'll talk about the Philippines because that's what I know more and have experienced, and you also. We're all here together. So I think we have to, this is really something we have to look at, no, to see the whole context of what's happening around us, because whether we like it or not, it's affecting our mental health. So but how do we deal with this? First of all, we need to be clear about what we are dealing with. That's number one. Clarity is essential for our mental health. So we have to be clear. Let's look at it. What's happening around us? Number one, I would say this more emphatically now. The traffic has worsened. It's not horrendous, and there are times when it's intolerable. Tolerable. I'm not. It seems like a small thing, but the traffic, that if you go daily through the traffic, it's not a small thing at all. It becomes a major part of your day, and it erodes your energy. Whether your energy and your disposition is affected. So let's not make it a small thing. Okay, that's one. Of course, the other thing that's happening, we all know, is a political crisis. No, with a political crisis. It's really a crisis, except it's not yet probably being talked about as a crisis, but it is a crisis, because now people are speaking up against certain injustices, I might say, that they are seeing already very clearly happening before their eyes. Whereas people were quiet maybe a year ago, now many people are speaking up, speaking out, and it takes a lot of risk to do that. And we know, I'm speaking now, I'm also risking myself, but I have to tell the truth, because one of the things that's happening is that truth telling is disappearing. Lying has become a habit, a way of life. has become something that is just an ordinary thing that happens every day. So we are not making a big deal of it, but it is a big deal because when the truth doesn't come out, nothing can be solved. Number one. Number two, because we're concerned about our children. When children hear lies all over the place and no one's really making a big fuss about it, it's as if it's normal. So what I'm afraid of, and we have to fight against, all of us here listening, we have to fight against that culture of lying that the children are absorbing. Whether we see it or not, we like it or not, children absorb this from the adults that they're supposed to look up to in society, especially people in authority. So it's really urgent, no, that we follow what MLAC's Quiet Revolution if we're trying to foster truth telling and kindness. So I think we have to really be serious about this and not take it for granted because children are learning that lying is normal. That's very disturbing. We should be disturbed, we should be alarmed, and we should try to do something about it.
It's very good to be aware that these things, political and then the environment, the traffic, maybe not a lot of people are aware na actually that really affects our mental health. No?
Very much, yes.
So imagine going through traffic day in, day out, no? So 2 oras papunta sa work, tapos 2 oras pa uwi. So that really takes its toll in our mental health.
Very much.
And also hearing the news, and there are a lot of lying, and it's something that we absorb. No? These two things that you mentioned and highlighted, actually, these seem to be things that are nowadays a given na parang it's normal, it's common, and it feels like it's something not within our control or like as an individual. But do you think there's something that we can do individually to counter this and protect our mental health despite of all these things happening around us?
A good question. That's a very important question because all these things are assaulting us, okay, imposing on us, sometimes overwhelming us. So what can we do first as individuals? Of course, we go to family groups, etc. No, later communities, but start with ourselves as individuals. Of course, as I always say, the first thing we need to ask is going through all this, seeing all this, feeling all this chaos and crisis. Personally impinging already on our daily lives, no, energy draining, etc. The first question is, how do we take care of ourselves? Maybe the first answer is before that. The first thing we need to do is take care of ourselves because otherwise there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do. So against the culture of take care of others first, we go counterculture. We need to go counterculture and not feel that taking care of ourselves is selfish. Right now, taking care of ourselves is not selfish. It is essential. It's the most generous thing you can do to your children, to your family, to the country. Okay, so I ask you, how do you take care of yourself? Maybe if you want me to go into that, but that taking care of ourselves, one of the individual takes care of himself or herself, then he's already taking care of his family, the people around him. Because if you are okay, people around you will feel that your vibe of being okay. And I'm working with families for many years. This is so important. When the parents and the adults in the families are not okay, the children inevitably are troubled. They want to save the family. They become very disturbed about it. So the adults must be okay. So that's, to me, is one thing we can do. We can control our own lives first. No, we can look at our body. How do we honor our body? For example, pagod na pagod ka na, you have to still continue to drive 2 more hours. You will force driving 2 more hours. Simple lang ito. You stop. In other words, the body must be paid attention to now. Because of all the chaos, the mind is confused. It's really confusing. It's really difficult to discern what to believe, what not to believe, to discern where to go, where not to go. The only one that will not be lying, will not trick us like our mind can trick us, is our body. So first thing you do, the most basic thing you do now to take care of yourself is focus, pay attention to your body. Okay, are you feeling certain pains? Are you very tired? Are you always not able to sleep? Are you not nourishing yourself, both physically, mentally, spiritually? I think that's the first basic question we can ask. We cannot go beyond that, and we cannot skip it, and we cannot make it not important. So I don't know if, yeah.
I remember, ma'am, actually, sa mga talks mo usually on mental health or parenting, na one thing that a lot of the audience really take and absorb, and what strikes them is when you say that rest is a moral obligation. Yeah. And it makes sense to them kasi parang it really connects to us kasi when you realize that if you don't rest, you also affect other people around you, you can blow up and like lash out at other people. It helps to think of that na it affects others. It helps in the motivation to take care of yourself, diba?
Right. Yes, yes. That's a very, very important point to highlight that and to focus on it. No? Because if you are miserable, if you don't take care of yourself, you're hot-headed, you're easy to anger, you're irritable, you're not pleasant, you make other people around you miserable. So it is really your obligation to take care of yourself. So obligation to rest. No, I think you have pointed out a very important, again, counterculture. I have to emphasize because I've seen it again and again, even now, even if we've talked about it, that when people go rest, they feel guilty. They feel it's an indulgence. It's something they should not do. They should be doing something because there's so many things to do. So when they rest, they feel guilty. That's why I'm saying it's a moral obligation, because I think we should remove from our consciousness that cultural indoctrination that we have had for so many years, that resting means you're lazy, or resting means you're not doing anything, because resting is essential for you to be able to sustain what you are doing. Let's say you're parenting and you don't rest, you burn out, you affect the whole family. If you're in an organization, you're the boss, and you're not resting, you're not taking care of yourself, you become irritable. Now I'm dealing with a lot of executives who are having rage, anger issues. Anger management is a very important thing now, and I'm doing it with some executives. Why? Because they also are not aware, or they also are not comfortable when they are just resting. It's big. It's a very big thing that we have to counter. We have to change the mindset. We have to reframe what it is, what it means to rest. And I think you brought that very, very important. And it's also modeling to our children that parents also need to rest. I think that's something that we don't sometimes know. Children think that parents should always be doing what they should be doing. And when parents are resting, normally the children are also like not comfortable. Why is my mom not cooking, not drilling the house, or not talking to the people who need support? It's a cultural thing. It's a family culture also. No? So I think I want to emphasize that. Importante.
Importante rin talaga to be, as a parent, to provide that example of the importance or valuing rest. No? Actually, nabanggit mo kanina about how when you talk to families na yung parent hindi nag-rest, tapos lashing out na, tapos nasa-stress, ang tendency is, hindi mo ginamit yung word kanina, pero yung sinasalo ng ibang tao sa pamilya. So yung family members, yung mga anak, which it's not their responsibility na sasaluhin yung parent, di ba? But it's something that they naturally do. Maybe they want to help na lessen the stress of the parent. Pero does that have like a negative impact rin on the child kapag sinasalo niya yung parent?
Yes, that's a very good question. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned it because there I have a chapter in my book, Filipino Children Under Stress, called Tagasalo. Means you rescue people in the family. The tagasalo in the family is the one who makes things right. She will do things so that things will be okay. And if you're a child, you will do things so that your parents will be okay. I will mention a very what else, because it's the first most dramatic example that I can think of that actually it was my case a long time ago. And I want to mention it again to highlight the need to, to know that children make salo whether they like it or not, whether we know it or not. It's a natural tendency for them to take care of their parents. Their parents are not okay. So that's very important because this case, no, okay, briefly lang. 4.5-year-old boy, I've talked about this na. He was we were doing play therapy. Okay, anyway, briefly, very briefly, his play was we would build a house. The house will be toppled down by a storm. Build a house, earthquake. Build a house, tornado. Build a house, fire. Every time we would build a house, it would be destroyed right away. So in play therapy, it's symbolic, you know. So I know that there's something happening to the family. Actually, the truth was they were going to lose their house, literally, because the father lost his job and they have to transfer to a smaller house. So it was not just symbolic. So symbolic play giving us the true picture of what's happening in the family. The important thing about this example is that after a while, this 4.5-year-old boy said, I want to die now. So of course, that's very alarming. Is he gonna kill himself? Is this childhood suicide? Well, then maybe the true story is this. So when we had such a good rapport, so I asked him very casually, Toto, you said you want to die. Why do you want to die, ba? He said, I want to die because when I die, I will be up there with Papa Diyos and I will be able to help my mama and papa on earth because they're having such a good time and they're not doing well. Coming from it, 4.5-year-old boy. Is the most striking example, but that's all over the place. Children will try to make things right for their parents, but it is not their responsibility as a 4.5-year-old boy, as a child, to take care of their parents. That's a reversal of role, which is not good for the child. It's too much burden, emotional, mental burden for a child to try to take care of their parents. One, they cannot do it. Number two, they will just be frustrated and they will want to do it more, but they cannot. So this example, I think, is very, very clear. So I'd like to say here, to insert something I always want to say as a very good way of summarizing what children need from their parents. Because there are so many parenting books, this is also about mental health, many parenting books on how to parent children who will grow up well, optimal development, mentally healthy, physically healthy, etc. Millions of that. But if I want to summarize it in 2 sentences related to the example that I gave, very clear. One is the child needs to know that his parents are okay. So he can say, my parents are okay and I matter to them. Think of those two things. The child needs that. Not only needs it, the child deserves to know that the parents can take care of him as a child, and the parent's role is to take care of the child. It's not the child's role to take care of the parents. So I think that's very, very important.
Okay, thank you. That's a very important reminder, no? And interesting dun sa example na binigay mo is parang lumabas sa play ng bata and in I think in that example hindi man lang kinakwento ng parents dun sa bata yung nangyayari. So parang the child
Yes.
absorbs kahit na tinatago ng parents, maybe they somehow they feel or they notice something that makes
Yeah.
them know that there's something wrong.
Yes, they're so sensitive to that. Parents hide it, by the children see it. They
Okay.
know, they sense.
And I'm imagining, I mean, 4 years old pa lang tong bata na to, but I'm trying to imagine paano kung gano'n na talaga yung role at nasanay na siya doon, tapos hanggang, let's say, teenager na siya, and then I can imagine how that can really affect someone's mental health, no? Kung
Yeah.
prolonged na parang lagi niyang sinasalo or parang lagi siyang nag-worry sa parents niya dahil
Mm-mm.
hindi naalagaan ng parents yung sarili nila.
Yeah, that's a long-term effect. In fact,
Mm-mm.
when they get older and maybe they're already married, there will be a kind of a role that they might play for the rest of their lives to make solve everybody's problems. So they
Even in their
become
own families.
exactly their own family, their friends, everybody. I'm not saying it's wrong to make solo, but when it becomes a habit, I call it in the chapter compulsive tagasalo. So you take care of others so much that you burn out, because in taking care of others, you forget to take care of yourself. Back to the basic thing we talked about earlier. Again, mental health issue talaga yan.
That sounds like it's a matter of really balancing that. I mean, nothing wrong with giving to others. Lalo na kung heartfelt, you really want to help. But at the same time, wag natin kalimutan yung sarili natin, alagaan. Kasi palaging, like you said, counterculture, no? Parang we put heroes in a pedestal, heroes who self-sacrifice, who give and
Martyrs.
give. Yan. Pero yung hindi natin napapag-usapan is yung pag-alaga rin sa sarili, being kind to yourself.
Exactly. Being kind to yourself, but essential. Also, how can you be kind to others? I mentioned that because that's part of our quiet revolution, di ba? To foster truth-telling and kindness, because if you all notice also, kindness is somewhat disappearing because maybe so much stress to deal with. It's so hard to be kind because you're so stressed, and the stress is overwhelming, so you can't even be kind to your others and to yourself. So baka that kindness, you're saying kind to yourself. Counterculture talaga siya, pero kailangan natin i-emphasize yan ngayon talaga. Especially.
Yeah. So what I get from everything that you said so far is how to counter yung mga uncontrollable, overwhelming factors around us is really to start with ourselves. And I imagine if we start with ourselves, with our families, it's something that can grow outward. Like something that you always mention, like a small group of people can make a difference.
Yes. Yeah. There's a quote, diba, from Margaret Mead. I think we posted it. Never doubt, I'll paraphrase now, never doubt that a small group of committed and thoughtful people can change the world. In fact, it is the only thing that ever has. You look at history. For example, Jesus, how many disciples did he have? The Buddhist, leaders, how many, novices or people did they have in a group? So it starts with a small group, and it can grow. As you said, it can grow, but let us not be discouraged if we are starting with a small group, because that is how it will happen. Yeah.
That's a wonderful reminder kasi when you feel overwhelmed and it feels helpless, having a small group, at least you know that can give us hope.
Right. And I want to emphasize also that it's important that you have even a small group, because it's so important in facing crisis, chaos, and pain, whatever it is, tragedy, that you know that you are not alone. That's very important. So even if your group is still small, you are not alone. Ang galing-galing ng saying natin, hindi ka nag-iisa. Remember, that is one of the gifts of our culture. We are a collective culture. Our gift is that when somebody is suffering, people are there, nakiramay, nakikiramay, nakikisama, yung sinasamahan. Very, very important thing that we need to emphasize now in the context of mental health, in the context of taking care of mental health. Seek other people who understand and feel the same way. Know that you are not alone. Have a group, and the group will give you each one strength, and the group can grow, or there may be different groups that will grow. Maybe there'll be 1 million groups, and then we'll have more impact. So I think there's hope in that. There's hope in our ability to be relating and connecting with each other as a culture. Now we have this culture that we don't have to counter. We can be proud of it and use it and really do it to the utmost importance, give it utmost importance, that we connect with each other, we gather together, we talk about it. Right now, I was just talking to somebody who's was a tragic death that should not have happened just 2 minutes ago before we entered this Zoom. And what was important was there were people around in the wake, because remember, during the pandemic, there was no way that we could have a wake. So in the wake, I'd like to say, for example, that one custom or ritual we have during the wake is very, very healing, mentally healthy, opposed to individualistic cultures, which I have also experienced. No, experiencing, being awake in a Western culture where you cannot talk, you cannot cry, you're just alone in your grief. But in the Philippines, people cry, tell the story. Ano nangyari? Tell the story, tell the story. O bakit? Ganito. That is very, very therapeutic. Let's keep that ritual. Yung wake natin, and then there's food. People ridicule that. No, it's very important. You share the food, you share the grief, you share the story. Therefore, you are able to not just release, you're able to connect, you're able to feel nurtured by other people. You're able to know that you are not alone and people are with you, accompanying you. So important. That's one of the gifts of our culture. Let's keep it. And when they criticize it, let's be proud of it and tell the world to emulate, to copy it, because it's really a good one, a good practice.
Yeah, thank you so much for highlighting the strength of our culture and how that ties up to our mental health. So sana nga gamitin natin yung strength na yun sa yung pagiging yung coming together, hindi ka nag-iisa. Sana tandaan natin
Pakikisama.
yun. That's the key.
Yes, that's the key. Pakikiramdam, pakikisama, pakikiramay.
Tsaka yung
Pakikibaka, lahat yun.
pakikipagkapwa-damdamin.
Yun, pakikipagkapwa-damdamin.
Okay.
Accompanying. Ibang klase yun. Importante yun talaga. We can export it to the world as a way of dealing with difficulties and dealing with mental health issues.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that reminder. It's already 9:30, but I have just one question na feeling ko baka interested yung mga nanonood ngayon. A more personal question is, just wanted to ask, since you've been talking about how to take care of yourself, being a very busy person with workshops and talks and clients every day, how do you take care of yourself?
That's a good question, because when I just entered this, I told you I'll just be going out for a few seconds. I got a call about 2 minutes before we started about somebody who was crying, and I said, "Oh my God, what is this 80-year-old woman doing doing all these things?" As if I was 50. But I think the answer to that is one. I'm in a place where there is nature. I think that's another thing I forgot to say. One of the ways we take care of our mental health is to seek nature. There is something so healing in being in nature. Look at the trees, and the wind is blowing, and all these tall trees are, the leaves are all swaying with the wind, and there is a cloud and the sky. I can see it right now from where I am. And it really uplifts you. So that's one way my gift. The gift I am so grateful for is being in a nature sanctuary. But if you're not in a nature sanctuary, you can seek nature. You can look at pictures of nature. It's not a small thing. It will help. And then number two, I also schedule my rest. Force some kind of rest in between. And sometimes force it, because if you don't force it, you will just go with the flow. And if I go with the flow, I will not be able to rest. So prioritizing that and knowing that it is important to sustain what I've been doing for almost 50 years, which is really to listen also to my body, to honor what my body is saying, that right now, you're sleepy, so sleep even for just 10 minutes. But something like that. No, listening to the body, not ignoring the signs of the body. Sometimes I'm not saying that I do it well. I fail many times, no, but the practice that has helped me is mindfulness. And that's a workshop we can do where mindfulness is how you become aware of what's going on inside you and what's going on around you, and you accept it. So you become at peace, and you are present, and you're thinking of what might happen tomorrow. That's worrying about what will happen next day that you worry about. So you are stay in the present, but you also become present to everything you do. I remember I was talking about this and somebody was listening, and then he texted me after. She texted me after. She said she bought vegetables from the grocery. She was packing them very fast in her refrigerator. Then she heard me and she started to one by one pack them, put the soyote here, and then she said she was found joy because she was being mindful, meaning she was present to what you are doing. Being mindful means if you are drinking coffee, you're drinking coffee. If you're fixing your refrigerator, you are fixing your refrigerator, you are totally present there. It's so interesting because it doesn't seem to make sense theoretically, but when you try it, you be, for example, I'm rushing and then I said, wait a minute, I'll be totally present to what I'm doing. It gives you some kind of peace, and it even gives you a glimpse of joy in what you're doing. So that's it. And of course, my faith in God, my faith in the universe, my faith, my spirituality has deepened because of my age also, and because of maybe dealing with depths of people's pain and joy has made me become more spiritual. And in fact, I believe that when we help people in psychotherapy, underneath at the core of what we're doing, our techniques, etc., is the compassion and kindness and spirituality that is underneath all the techniques that we're doing.
Thank you so much for that. I think that's inspiring even to people listening who are in the mental health, has a mental health career, service, no? To hear that from you, how there's something more to just the work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Something deeper, you go inner. And in fact, the next book, I'll advertise here, my next book is entitled, I borrowed from my teacher, The Way Out is In. I will just leave you with that intriguing title.
Okay. Yes. And we will announce soon when that will be launched and when our next event will be the anniversary, MLAC
Yes.
anniversary. No?
Yes.
But this month we have a lot of like world mental health awareness events that our listeners can hopefully watch out for. And thank you so much again, Mom, for your time and for the reminders. Actually, just to summarize what you just said earlier, let me try to remember. So you said seek nature, that's one. Schedule or forcing rest, and then listen to your body, and then practice mindfulness, and then have faith.
Yes, spirituality.
I
Yes.
think that's a lot already to think
Got
about.
it. Wow, that's great.
All
Putting
right.
it that. Okay.
Again, thank you so much, Mom. There'll be more of
Welcome.
this.
Okay.
But
Thank you
thank
for
you
doing
for
this, Chris. This is really, I think I really sincerely believe this is so important at this time.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Bye
Bye,
everyone.
everyone. Bye.